Hello, everyone, and happy Friday, guys, and welcome to this Friday edition of FSU Weather. I'm student meteorologist Troy Fields.
And I'm student meteorologist Casey Cloud. Here on this Friday, we're keeping an eye very closely on Tropical Storm Karen in the Gulf of Mexico. Currently has max sustained winds of 50 miles an hour, but we are expecting a weakening trend to continue, at least for the present time, due to some strong upper level winds and some dry air.
Yes, and right now, unfortunately, that's helping weaken Karen a lot. But on the other hand, it's making its ever so approach to the Gulf Coast, and it's going to happen later on tomorrow. But the landfall is going to it may clip the southeastern part of Louisiana, right, Casey?
Absolutely. Yeah. Also, anywhere right between New Orleans and Panama City needs to be on watch for based on the current track. But really, anybody on the Gulf Coast region needs to keep an eye on this tropical cyclone, as there is some pretty significant model uncertainty this close in to the potential track impacting in terms of the areas and the landfall.
And of course, tomorrow is game day, and we will likely be seeing lots of rain from Karen as it makes its approach to the Gulf Coast. So for those of you going out to the game tomorrow, you're going to want to make sure that you have your umbrella, or if you're actually going to the game, ponchos are not allowed. So you just want to have that in handy because it looks just in case it rains and you don't want to get rained on. But in the meantime, for more on Karen, we're going to send it out to Zach with the overview.
Hey, Troy and Casey, thank you very much. Let's look at your weather headlines right now. Karen is threatening, and we'll be talking through about that throughout tonight's show. A lot of information and still a little uncertainty about Karen and her track for this weekend. So we'll be talking about that throughout today's show. But it was sunny and hot today. You guys probably went to your classes and noticed that. So pretty nice day before Karen coming through, and we'll also be talking about your national outlook. A lot of stuff is actually happening right now around the nation. As we zoom out, you can see right here, huge blizzard, the first blizzard of the season. Blizzard warnings are out. We'll be talking about that later on. A nice warm front going all the way out to Boston, talking about some severe weather. And then, of course, down here, we've got Tropical Storm Karen right there. So we'll be talking about that. But our current temps, 80s, mid-80s around the region. And tonight's forecast, 70 degrees with clouds increasing. But we're going to send it on back to the desk with Troy and Casey.
Thanks, Jack. Let's go ahead and take a look at the current hurricane watch that was dropped, in fact, discontinued from the mouth of the Pearl River to Destin, Florida. This was downgraded to a tropical storm watch.
Yes, and a tropical storm watch, for those of you wondering, means that tropical storm conditions are possible within a 48-hour period.
Absolutely. In terms of a tropical storm warning, however, which is in effect from Morgan City, Louisiana, to the mouth of the Pearl River, and this means tropical storm conditions, meaning sustained winds of 39 to 73 miles per hour, are expected within the next 36 hours.
Yes, and just to brush up on the effects of Karen, you got more likely with the conditions. We're going to include strong winds, heavy rain, which will be the main threat, of course, and in addition, rough seas. So just if you're out there, just take it easy. But in the meantime, let's send it out to the wall with Alex. And Alex, how are things looking locally?
Well, very warm across the region today. We reached a high of 89 degrees. Once again, above average. It looks like we are starting to go back to those numbers in the low, 10 degrees above average as well. Very warm across the region. Aside from the cooler temperatures we've been experiencing last week, those dew point values were high again, making it feel much more uncomfortable. Near 70 degrees, when you start getting a dew point around there, it starts to feeling sweaty, moist, not comfortable at all. Mostly cloudy skies, though, are persisting, but that temperature at 87 degrees is still around, so relatively warm even for the evening hours. 90 degrees in Valdosta, 84 in Thomasville, the cool spot over here in Carabel with 83 degrees closer to the ocean, and I'm sure the breeze from the nearby tropical system is helping them feel a little cooler. Well, what do we have in water vapor? Dry air persisting over the western Gulf. Over our neck of the woods, not so much moisture, but not as dry either. We have been getting a lot of cloud cover today, and this is the tropical system not looking like much, but this will soon track towards our area, bringing us moisture. Satellite and radar showing the moisture, and the radar avoiding us for the most part, traveling off towards the west-northwest, impacting areas such as Mobile, New Orleans, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and it doesn't look like we're going to be receiving any of that rainfall today. It will look like it will start heading in our neck of the woods about Saturday nights, and tonight we're going to have cloudy conditions continue. And as those conditions continue, the game is going to look quite nice, but very warm outside. I'm forecasting a high of around 87 degrees. So once again, it's going to be warm and uncomfortable out there. But as the day goes on, we're going to see a lot more rainfall as Tropical Storm Karen does near the coastline. And when it does so, the rain chances are going to spike up. I'm giving it about a 70% chance. So make sure you bring your umbrellas after the game if you plan on having any fun after the game, because I'm sure it's Parents' Weekend, so hopefully you guys stay dry and avoid any bad trouble. Watches and warnings, nothing over our area yet. We do have some tropical storm wind watches off towards the west near Pensacola. Not in our viewing area, but it might continue to propagate towards us once the storm does get closer. But we will keep you posted on that, so stay tuned to FSU Weather. Beach forecast. Winds southeast at 15 miles an hour tomorrow. It shows that the storm is getting closer. Surf at 2 to 3 feet. It's still going to be another high UV index day, so make sure you bring your sunscreen. Boating forecast tomorrow. Saturday, it's looking quite bumpy with 15 knots on the ocean as well, 2 to 4 feet with a chance of showers. It's going to be a very bumpy ride. For tonight, we're going to be seeing 70 degrees as our low. Clouds increasing. It's going to feel nice and comfortable. And for tomorrow, we're going to see cold, nice cool temperatures, and then rapidly increase at around noontime for 83 degrees, but we should be in the clear until after the game. 7-day forecast showing what we're going to be seeing, and the biggest rain chance is on Sunday and Monday, but those highs look rather friendly in the lower 80s. Now, let's take it back to Casey and Troy for more on the tropical storm.
Hey, no, Alex, I was going to send you off to me. Instead of Southeast today, we're going to have another quick tropic segment around the local area. I'm going to give it to you a little locally, maybe what are you seeing throughout the weekend. Now, Karen is certainly beginning to organize itself a little. So certainly some wind shear to the west of it. Now, you see why is it now wrapping around? Now, the center is just right around here with, of course, convection not on the westward side. The reason why that wind shear has been persisting throughout the day and has not allowed itself to organize and vertically develop. Now, vertical development is how a hurricane or a tropical storm begins to grow and intensify. We haven't been seeing much of that today, but showers have begun to make its way into New Orleans and eventually into our area going into Saturday, I would say evening time. Now, water vapor certainly giving us a good indication of what's happening with Tropical Storm Karen. We do have a lot of good convection around the center area, just to the east is where a majority of all the storms are. And of course, to the west, we have that drier air and wind shear. And that's really not the environment it's allowing it to develop and begin to intensify maybe into a hurricane. But currently, we don't see that happening anymore. Intensification models have not seen this going into hurricane status. So that is a good part, at least for our region, and even to the regions into the Gulf of Mexico. Water vapor imagery showing once again the same thing like I was saying. Now the watches and warnings. Now currently we only have tropical storm watches up into effect extending from the Franklin County line westward. So Tallahassee region specifically does not have a tropical storm watch up. However, though, if this storm track does make its trend, we may expect some tropical storm force gusts into our region. Now, let's see, according to the 5 o'clock update, moving north-northwest at 6 miles an hour. The winds are sustained at the surface, 50 miles an hour with gusts up to 63. And a good indication of intensification is the millibars, the pressure. 1,003, we've been seeing the same pressure throughout the day, so no intensification expected just yet. Now, the storm track continuing north, and as that cold front does make its way through into Sunday, it ejects towards the right into the region. In the impact area, we're beginning to see now just to the west of Pensacola is maybe where the landfall expecting for the region. And certainly that's one of the big things. The wind fields, I put this in motion real quick. The tropical storm winds do sustain itself into New Orleans area and Gulfport, Louisiana, and eventually into Pensacola and Fort Walton Beach. May see some tropical storm winds. Gust-wise, though, for us, not seeing too much. Now, the futurecast shows storm surge. This is the east track. If it does shift east, we could see Appalachia Bay into Appalachia, seeing a 4 to 6 feet surge, and et cetera, et cetera. And going to the next few days, we do have these conditions beginning to persist into Saturday night. And Sunday is when we see Karen begin to make its formation and everything. But however, we're going to go switch it back to the desk now with Casey and Troy of their last desk.
All right, thanks, Jason. And we're just going to quickly brush up on what happened today in weather history.
Right, Hurricane Opal made landfall in 1995 as a low in Category 3 hurricane near Pensacola Beach, Florida. This is similar based to the current track of Tropical Storm Karen, but not expecting anywhere near that intensity. And of course, the track of Tropical Storm Karen is still uncertain. Now, this storm formed in the Yucatan and meandered around for days in the southern Gulf of Mexico.
Yes, and it peaked in the Gulf as a Category 4 hurricane, so thankfully it weakened to the Category 3 hurricane, but still it did a significant amount of damage to the Florida Gulf Coast where Karen is going to make landfall. But in the meantime, we're going to switch it back out to your natural John, who's going to have more of what's going on across the nation.
This weekend, it's going to be a very busy weekend across the entire continental United States. You can see warm across the east in the 80s and 90s, and then quite chilly in the Rockies, 40 degrees in Denver there. And that is the difference in air masses there. There's a strong cold front diving south through the Rockies and into the Central Plains and Southern Plains as well. You can see that system here, and I'm going to look at this in depth a little bit, but you can see the mix of that cold air in terms of the blue snow there and the green there. That is the stronger storms in the Dakotas, into Nebraska, and these are expected to pop into severe weather over the next few hours, and I'll talk to that in just a second. What's the reason for all that severe weather? This is the reason. Those blues, that's all drops in temperature from this time yesterday. In Denver, they're 20 degrees below where they were this time on yesterday's forecast. And also I want to take a look off towards the west. San Francisco at 7 degrees, a little bit warmer than yesterday. And why is that significant? I'll get to that in just a second. But first, zooming into the major storm here, this is going to drop a lot of snowfall, upwards of 18 inches near Rapid City, South Dakota, and along the I-90 corridor in southern South Dakota. And this is going to slowly transition from the west to the east, over from rain to snowfall as it transitions off towards the east. And this is going to drop down a cold front that will affect us over the next couple of days. But first, everything in red here is a blizzard warning. In some of these spots, visibility is down to 50 yards. That's half a football field, folks. And everything in pink here is winter storm warning. So this is a very large storm in terms of size. And this is all going to push off towards the east, and it's going to bring winter weather into the Midwest. And that's not the only story with this one. This red box here, that's a tornado watch box until 10 o'clock local time there. And severe thunderstorm watch box from northwestern Missouri all the way down into south central Oklahoma, into the Norman area and down into Lawton. And that's the area where we could see some very severe storms in these areas for a stronger wind gust, and also in some very large hail as well. And also I want to bring your attention to the southern California area. Some of these places are having some severe wind. By that I mean winds could be 70 to 80 miles an hour in areas of the mountains downrange of the mountains closer to the coast. I'm going to scoot by that radar. Do have to look quickly at the Gulf of Mexico. That's where Karen is. Here's the warm front that is draped across, just some rainfall there. I'm going to go ahead and send it over to Jason really quick for another look at the local weather.
Hey, thank you very much, John. I'm going to step in for Jason here for our almanac, and we reached a high today of 89 degrees. 89 felt really muggy around campus today. If you were able to head out there, enjoy some of the weather before the storm rolls in, we're definitely above average in our high temperature today. Now currently at our airport, we're looking at 86 degrees under partly cloudy skies. The dew point remains high at 69 degrees, so that muggy conditions, so it's going to persist and continue, especially with Karen looming on some of our front door. 86 at our airport, 86 in Quincy, 88 in Bainbridge, so mid to upper 80s across all of the region. I don't see any 90s anywhere left on this map. However, there were a few 90s up in Bainbridge, one of our normal hot spots for the day. Wind flow around the region, we shifted from an easterly flow, which we had earlier today. Now we're getting more of a southeasterly to southerly flow ahead of the approaching storm system. So it's bringing in moist air off of the Gulf of Mexico, and you can feel it in the dew point and relative humidities. Now for watches and warnings for our area, we are in the clear in our tri-state location, but anywhere from Apalachicola westward, they're under tropical storm watches for the duration of this storm. And that means that tropical storm conditions are expected within the next 48 hours. So it's in that time to put an action plan into effect, and tropical storm winds are anything sustained from 39 miles per hour or greater. Satellite and radar is pretty quiet so far, but you see this moisture beginning to sneak its way forward. That's going to continue with the track of Karen. It's a very oblong storm. Most of the activity is actually on the eastern side of the system. Center of circulation, as I get my name right out of the way there, is right here down the south central Gulf, and all the west side of the system is barren from any type of moisture. That's good news for it not to intensify, because for a storm to intensify, it has to be symmetric and have that central location covered by intense thunderstorms. So for our futurecast locally, we're looking at partly cloudy skies, variable cloudiness overnight, and as we move into tomorrow, it looks like a very good day for our game day. Expecting kickoff at noontime, sunny to partly sunny skies, but all the moisture is going to move ahead with Karen making the closest approach to the western panhandle of Florida, and that's going to increase our rain chances to around 70% for Sunday. Moving ahead to tonight's forecast, 70 degrees, clouds are going to increase, comfortable conditions, but tomorrow we're looking at 87, put that 30% chance of rain late in the day, but for our weekend ahead, 7-day forecast brings that chance of rain closest to us on Sunday into Monday with highs in the 80s. But let's shunt it on back to the desk for some more info.
All righty, Pete, thank you very much for that information. And we also like to tell you about what to do just in case a hurricane or tropical storm threatens our area. And even though it doesn't look like a direct landfall over Tallahassee is about to happen, it does look like we should still take precautions, right?
Yeah, it is interesting that Karen is coming up. You need to brush off your hurricane kits, even if she isn't a hurricane. And remember, 3 gallons of water per person is a pretty good average.
Yes.
Per day, as well as some non-perishable foods, some batteries, flashlights, and a first aid kit.
Yes. Also, believe it or not, a radio is still extremely helpful, especially during this time of year. If the TVs do go out and the internet goes out, the radio still, with some batteries, you'll be able to stay informed on all the information after a hurricane, and hopefully it would be as smooth. I do not think it's going to be as bad. Just a rainmaker, in my opinion. What do you think?
I think a rainmaker as well, but you know, Tawana probably has a little more information on that, so let's send it out to the wall with her.
Thank you, guys. Around Florida is relatively calm, absolutely beautiful around the state right now. Tampa is seeing a couple clouds in their area with the current temperature of 85 degrees. Here, back home in Tallahassee, 86. And over in Pensacola, the calm before the storm, 84 degrees. Water vapor, mostly dry when you look over the southeastern part of the United States. But if you look directly into the Gulf of Mexico, that is some serious moisture in that area. That is Karen right there. She is just dominating that part of the Gulf of Mexico, and she will eventually move on shore and just kiss the coast, and we'll see what happens after that. Either a front is going to come and push it slightly to the east, or it's going to move onshore before the front gets to where it needs to be. Radar, mostly dry, like I said, very calm before the storm moves onshore. There are some showers moving into New Orleans area and Louisiana area right now from Karen, and that's just a slight effect of it before it gets onshore. Around Florida, though, relatively dry, not much happening. If we zoom in to northern Florida, however, you can see that some little backscatter from the radars, nothing really happening. Relatively dry over the northern parts in Jacksonville, Valdosta, and into Tallahassee. If you scoot a little further south, however, still relatively dry. You can see little specks of Karen off to the side, but just absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous day around Florida. Down in the south, Miami, having a gorgeous day. Same with West Palm Beach. Everyone's just really enjoying themselves today. Key West, however, having some slight storms right now, but that will move on to the north and they'll be just fine in the next hour to 2 hours. But for our futurecast, it's going to be an absolutely gorgeous night. Still that slight chance of cloudy conditions tonight, so it'll be gorgeous, so I suggest you go out and enjoy your night, guys, especially since it's Parents' Weekend, so it should be definitely fun. For Saturday, the game, gorgeous day as well. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Game day should be fine. There is that chance of rain, however, so if you do go, make sure you do keep the poncho with you since umbrellas are not allowed. And into Sunday morning is when Karen comes ashore and we have that increased chance of rain from the Gulf. Tonight, relatively calm around the area, lows in the 60s and 70s, and for tomorrow, 90s, mostly around the Florida region. But I'm going to send it over to Lauren, who's going to tell us a whole lot more about Karen.
That's right, Tawana. Thanks, guys. I'm here to start you off with your tropical update. We do have a lot of action going on in the tropics right now, courtesy of Tropical Storm Karen. We'll start you off, though, with the list of names. Very unusual that we are only to the K-storm by this time of year, especially since our predictions were for an above-average season. Now, those predictions are still holding. The mid-season update, we still might see an above-average season, but Again, that's a lot of names to go. Currently still on Karen, and only 2 hurricanes to talk about so far this year. Again, very unusual. Now, talking about climatology, climatology is basically our average. This is what we expect during a normal year. And in October, for the tracks of the hurricanes, we see a lot of them form in the Caribbean. You might look a little bit familiar. It's exactly where Karen formed. We see them form in the Caribbean, and then as they come up, a lot of times will actually drift towards the Florida coast, but you can see the entire Gulf of Mexico and the Gulf Coast, again, in the firing line for a lot of those storms. We'll take you to Karen now, though. There's a look at your satellite across a little bit of the Atlantic Ocean, but now the Gulf of Mexico. I'll zoom in for you just a little bit and show you what's going on with Karen right now. Now, you probably can't tell, but the center of the storm is actually right here. That means the storm, we call it asymmetrical. It's not the same on both sides. It's very different. That's actually the sign of a potentially weakening and very immature tropical storm. Now, winds still going to be an impact. They're still right around that 45 to 50 mile per hour mark, but again, not looking so great development-wise as we look at the satellite. Now, for your water vapor, obviously a lot of moisture associated, especially with the center of this storm. You can see it all right here, but again, all concentrated towards the eastern side. I'm going to show you one of the problems with Karen right now, though. That's all this dry air. That's why it's not intensifying. It's why it's not getting super strong, is because we do have a lot of dry air off to the west, and that is actually starting to interact with Karen, and it's actually breaking it apart just a little bit, as well as some pretty strong wind shear. Here's your stats right now on it, though. We're looking at centered, there we go, in the Gulf of Mexico as it moves northward. We see it shift northward by Saturday evening at 45 miles per hour. There we go. And then as we head into the next day or so, we see it strengthen just a little bit right before landfall. We're looking at 50 miles per hour by Sunday evening. That's right off the coast. You can tell right there, almost Pensacola area is where we're looking. And then it heads off to our north just a little bit. And as it shifts up that way, that's when we expect it to dissipate and become a tropical depression as we head into the next few days. It looks like the Gulf Coast, though, things could get just a tad messy. Here's a look at the models. These are some computer models that we use to decide where and when the storm might come through. And it looks like most of them, again, trending right towards that Pensacola area on the Gulf Coast. A look at your future cast, though. Here's what's going to steer this tropical storm. As it comes up towards Louisiana, it looks like it's going to make landfall, right? Not quite. It actually, we have a cold front moving through. That cold front is going to steer it up, and it's going to probably approach the Big Bend area. Some local impacts. Storm surge, if it goes to the west, could be up to 4 to 6 feet in the Louisiana area, but if it goes towards the east, that's when the Big Bend area and Apalachicola looking at storm surge of potentially 4 to 6 feet. Locally, though, beach looks great. Your boating forecast, swells are already increasing to 2 to 4 feet. We'll go ahead, though, and send it off to the desk now with a look at some more local weather.
Well, before we get to the local weather, I wanted to report on something that's been happening in Mexico. Remember Ingrid and Manuel?
Yeah, they just drenched Mexico with so much tropical rainfall.
Yes.
Caused a lot of deaths, but I hear the death toll has actually risen.
Yes, the death toll has risen weeks after the 2 windstorms have made landfall. Both hurricanes at one point in their lives. However, Manuel was a tropical storm. The death toll is now at 157. As you can plainly see here, you don't really need a strong tropical system to cause trouble. And Mexico is no stranger to tropical systems, especially this season.
Exactly, and with the mudslides as well that can occur from tropical systems, it can take out tons of homes. About 175,000 homes were affected in this. But just a sad story to report.
Yes, very sad indeed. But we're going to take it on to a hopefully brighter forecast with our last local with Tyler.
Thanks so much, guys. And today, really a nice looking day. A lot of times with tropical systems, they kind of suck all that moisture up, and they're a moisture hog. And so that's why we saw a lot of blue sky, especially the first half of the day. A little bit more clouds, as you can see, as the day progressed. And right now, on the radar picture, we got a couple rogue showers, not anything real close to home, but mainly west of, say, Apalachicola over toward Panama City. You're seeing some of that rain. Just some shower activity, but nothing going to be a problem as we go into the nighttime tonight. It was hot, though, today. 89 degrees was the high temperature. Been a while since we've been that hot. 72 degrees was the morning low, so above average temperatures, especially mornings, 10 degrees above average, and that's going to continue as we go into the day on Saturday. 86 degrees under partly cloudy skies. Dew point is relatively high, so it's pretty humid out there with that southerly wind ahead of Tropical Storm Karen at 5 miles per hour. And currently around the Big Bend area, we're now all in the 80s. 86 again in the capital city, 89 in Monticello, very close to 90. Bainbridge, as Pete mentioned earlier, 95 degrees. It was very hot up in South Georgia. And the moisture, as I mentioned, is on the up and up, and it's really humid. You're feeling it along the coast, whether you're St. Mark, St. Teresa, down to Apalachicola.
Dew point temperatures are in the mid-70s, so that's more than impressive, and a bad hair day for the ladies out there as well. And again, the winds are coming out of the south, 5-10 miles an hour, especially along the coast, so that's aiding in this really humid tropical air mass ahead of, again, Tropical Storm Karen. We've been talking about it all show long. It's very ragged looking. Here's the center of circulation right down here. Wind shear is shearing the system apart, and that's good for the sake of it not likely to become a hurricane. The key factor with this system, though, is a cold front that's approaching from the west, still off this map. The timing of and exactness of where this storm goes depends on how fast that cold front moves and also the forward speed of Karen. So really there's still some uncertainty about its exact track. We'll keep watching this for you here on FSU Weather. For tonight though, no problems if you're going to the circus for Parents Weekend. Looking pretty nice, partly cloudy skies out there, just a few passing clouds. Again, dry, at least in the immediate area. Tomorrow, increasing clouds for your game day. Should be a-okay for the game for the most part. We're going to see maybe a couple of sprinkles later on, and definitely an increase in moisture as we go into, well, Sunday. For tonight, though, clouds will be around, temperatures in the lower 70s, but tomorrow, with those increasing clouds, maybe some rain threatening toward the end of the game tomorrow, but I think most of us will be dry. And then as we go into the 7-day forecast, that all changes Sunday in a hurry with Tropical Storm Karen, 70% chance of rain, some locally heavy rain, and then the good stuff comes in the form of cooler weather early next week. Let's recap the show now with more news on Tropical Storm Karen.
Hey, thanks, Tyler, for that final local of our show. Well, Alex, we've talked about Karen a lot today, so it looks like the rainfall will be the majority of Sunday.
Yes, and it looks like it might start impacting us Saturday night, but thank goodness the ranked matchup between FSU and Maryland will stay in the sunlight.
Yes, that's a very fun game, so if you can, get out there and enjoy yourself. But besides that, I think overall Karen's a smaller storm than what we were thinking earlier this week.
Yes.
A lot weaker, and that's obviously great news for us here in the Panhandle.
Yes, originally forecast to become a Category 1 yesterday, immediately after development. It's only been alive for about 2 days, and Karen's already causing so much worry across the Gulf Coast because we've known what storms can do around that area. But 7-day forecast is looking quite nice after Tuesday, right?
Yeah, the 7-day is looking great. 80 on Sunday with that rain, but once Karen moves out, those lower 80s take over, and it's going to be a lot nicer.
Yeah, so it looks like it's going to be a little more seasonal, which is nice to see. As always, you can always like us or watch us on livestream.com/FSU Weather or twitter.com.
And it's always a good thing to have, just in case Karen does do something drastic this weekend.
Yes, and as always, I'm student meteorologist Alex Cordero.
I'm student meteorologist Zach Covey.